And every day that you notice it, you are alive. But we are all of us in a waddle towards our death. Salam. Hello. Istinomen Nana. In this video, I'm going to introduce you to some of the ways in which I am super fascinated by the process of growing rice. The same process that's been used for thousands of years, especially here in Asia. And it's almost completely done by hand. Some simple machines are used sometimes to turn over the soil, but mostly it's done by hand. But this time I do it with a little bit of sadness. So when I walk through the village every day, I greet specific people and just sort of generally my neighbors, as I walk along. But then there are some things that I especially notice, that I pay attention to. And one was the duck man. So I'm not going to give you all of the steps of the process of the rice in this video, but you kind of need to know a little bit about the process so you can contextualize what's so special about the rice man. It only takes 3 months for the rice crop to grow from planting the little seedlings to harvesting the fully golden, rice with the shells and, processing those. But after they make that first cut, there's an interesting phase where a man in my village would come along with this gaggle of ducks. They all walk in uniform, waddling and everything. It's so interesting to see because, I never knew that ducks could do that. They could stay together so well. And, he would take them into a freshly cut field, meaning that there was still the bottom half of the stalks. The stalks grow 5 or 6 feet, like 1 or 2 meters before they're harvested. And so when they harvest, they cut off quite a bit, and then they process for just the rice. And they save the part in between to use as straw. So it's rice plant straw. But they still leave, these shoots that are half the size that the plant was when it grew to full maturation. And yet they're not done, because that bottom half also gets cut and it's used for straw. And this is straw that's used to feed sheep and goats and cows and animals that eat green things or green and dried things. And yet they don't move towards the next step, which is when they clear that layer, crop it down very close to the ground, and then they turn over the ground, turning over the bottom parts with it into the soil. And the reason why I mention that here is because when they do that, when they take the last little bit of the plant and they turn it around into the soil, fleets of white egrets fly down. So you have a whole field full of white egrets. I have photos, I'll show you so you know what I'm talking about. And what they do is when the soil is turned over, they get the worms. Now, the thing about the rice plant for me that's so magical is I knew that I did not know how to be retired. So I would say things like, in the West we would say, you have to stop and smell the roses. Well, roses in Indonesia, they don't smell. It's too hot. They don't grow. They have orchids that smell amazing, but there are many beautiful smelling things, but it's not the roses. So you can kind of use the metaphor of stop and smell the roses. So I started using the metaphor of stop and notice the growth process of the life-sustaining rice plant. Now, I didn't know any of this before. The most I knew is that there are different phases in terms of, growing the plant from some quick Google search I'd done before I moved here. But when you see it in process, number one, and when you see that that process is facilitated by many hands and people fulfill the part of their contribution seamlessly, it seems to me. There's a rhythm to it, there's a temperament, and there's a flow. There's also laughter. People here are just really kind of sunshine persons. And when people are working out in the field, they always wear those conical straw or bamboo or wicker hats to guard against having too much sun. And I've seen them working also in the rain, especially doing the planting, light rain, and it gives that kind of idyllic projection that you think about when you try to idealize this kind of process. And for some reason, the man who would bring these gaggle of ducks out to feed after the plant had been harvested and cut back, that man wore a blue conical hat. So I especially noticed him, but also because the ducks were so fascinating in that they were uniform in terms of, waddling out to the field. And like if I came up too close to them when he would be walking them down the street to enter into one of the paddy fields, they would kind of like run faster because they weren't familiar with me. They had a nice even flow. And this was a man who was younger than me. And I kept thinking, especially even this week, I was thinking, oh, I have such an inclination towards the senior members of this community. Obviously, I identify with them because I'm senior in age for sure. And I thought, I need to stop talking about taking pictures of them, and I need to get permission and actually go and take some photos. So I just looked through almost 3,000 photos, which I'm going to share while this is running, but I did not capture any of the duck man. So this is the thing. Life happens every day, and every day that you notice it, you are alive. But we are all of us in a waddle towards our death. And death is an integral part of life, yet it causes us to stop and reflect sometimes. So today is the janazah. He died yesterday, and today will be the janazah. And in this community, everybody comes out and they do a little sitting session and leave a little money and everything to help the family. But I always feel awkward because the local language is Japanese and I only have a little bit of the main language, which is Bahasa Indonesian. And, I just kind of feel awkward because I lived in so many places where women did not go to attend these kinds of things. But this is just a kind of community collective where people bring their open hearts and their, limited wallets, because it's a very poor community, but everybody contributes. And, they sit and they maybe have tea or, there might be snacks that's prepared by members connected to the family or the family themselves. So I feel uncomfortable to go, especially as a foreigner, when I don't know the family that well. I just know this blue conical hat and the ducks. So I used to call him the duck man. And inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. To Allah we all belong, and to Allah is our return. May he pass in peace, and also so much gratitude for the joy of the vision of him and the ducks in the rice paddies in the Paradise Village in Indonesia.